Hi there. I thought it was about time I come back down here to the rocks and do my On the Rocks Reflections video. The last one I did or recorded was in February, and of course I've been down plenty of times since then, in fact lots more times than I normally would, but just not spending the time to do a reflections video, although definitely lots of reflection time. You see, my last video in February, I called it Frenetic February, and there was a reason for that. I was coming to terms with the fact that it was time to know when enough is enough, to accept that there are some things you can't change, and to understand that other people own their behaviours, and that's not something that I need to take on my shoulders or burden myself with. So they were lessons right through January and February, which led to March, April, May for me being a restoration time. In all honesty, mental fatigue, blur, brain fog, and just a slow recovery from that kind of mental brain injury that you get at times when you have pushed yourself too far, perhaps not pulled up and stopped as soon as I should have. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. They're words I don't actually like to dwell on. But one thing that has been very clear for me in the work that I actually do with teams and also in my own experience now is understanding that we throw around the word resilience a lot. And resilience is not about keeping going until you break or until you drop. Quite the opposite, actually. Resilience is about knowing when to stop, knowing that you can and you will and you should reassess often as to how things are, and that you have the right to make better choices. That is true resilience. And for me, when I look back at some of the choices I made, I wanted to really check in on what that internal voice was that I was listening to when I made those decisions. The decision to go back into a very full-time contract, knowing that it was a toxic environment, knowing that it had some difficulties. And understanding, well, what internal voice was I listening to? I recognised in some ways it was a voice of ego. Ego's not a dirty word, we all have it. But the ego that was driving that was things like, I can do this. I've done this before. I've been in leadership in the public sector where I've turned around dysfunctional teams, where I've had to drive innovative change. I've won awards for it. You know what? I can do this. And I felt that, I could fix things that others had failed to fix, the three managers before me. I could actually do this. As a change champion, what's so hard about it? Now that is ego talking, because the reality is my intuition was screaming. I knew that it was a toxic environment. I felt every bit of undermining, the lack of trust, and in the end, absolutely no scope to fix or do what was needed. But my reflections today are not about that. I've done months of reflecting on that stuff. My reflections today are on the June-July part of this year, particularly in the last month, where I've been focusing again on writing my book, Impactful, Not Invisible, and developing the framework around what it's like to design or redesign life on your own terms, life after 50, after 60 in my case, and looking at what are the key things that you need to live an impactful life as we get older. One of those is knowing when to say no and knowing when to walk away. But there are 9 elements in the framework that I'm developing. I'm going to tell you more about those over the next coming months. But I wanted to just share with you the aha moments I've had in July, particularly over 4 of those elements. And that is health and well-being, and how important it is. I mean, we live a longer life now, and that's what I'm writing about and researching about. And that's all good, but won't work if you're not healthy and you're not well and you're burnt out for those last years of your life. So the focus on balance and energy and health is so important. The second one is social connection. How important it is, and I've been getting out more and really enjoying networking and building those relationships again. Because when I was doing a very full-time job, many times 10, 12-hour days, you've just got no time for the other connection stuff. And it's so important to have that for a balanced life again, and again for your mental and for your happiness and for your well-being. The third one is independent security. And you might think that you actually need to have a job with wages for that, but really it was about assessing what did I need for that independence. And I've done a lot around my personal and my business setup so that I have that independent security. The fourth one is adventure. And I'm going to be talking a lot more about that during Q4 of this year, the fourth quarter, because I'm off traveling. Now, with adventure, there's also recreation and fun. It's the little things as well as the bigger things. It doesn't have to be a big trip. It's just things like signing up for going to a music gig with some friends, or which I'm doing this Saturday. And just the little stuff as well, just knowing that you do need to have that fun and recreation and laughter and adventure in your life. So they're just 4 of the 9 elements that I've actually got this life wheel, if you like, about how to have a really impactful life as we get older. But for July, particularly in my reflections, I want to leave you with this. My reflections are that I am so grateful for the lessons, that I'm really thankful for the changes that I've been able to make, and that through all of this, I have become a better person with a wiser soul. So until next time, I hope you have a really wonderful August, and I'll talk to you at the end of August with more details on what I'm doing in the fourth quarter. Bye for now.